Welcome to Stardate 4 with Steve Layman from the Charlottesville Astronomical Society. What do you got to say for us today, Steve?
Hey, good afternoon. So what we're going to do this afternoon is take a look at the night sky for the month of July. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the things that we might see in the night sky. The 5th of July is the full moon, and as pretty much every month of the year, the full moon's got a special name, and it's the buck moon, because it's usually in the month of July that the male deer antlers start to show and to grow, and so we've got the buck moon named because of that. Next thing that we've got on the 5th of July is a lunar, it's a partial lunar eclipse, and so we're going to talk a little bit about both lunar eclipse geometry and partial lunar eclipses. So let me bring up the image of a lunar eclipse geometry. So an eclipse happens when something is between two other things. In the case of a lunar eclipse, the Earth is between the sun and the moon. In the case of a solar eclipse, the moon would be in between the Earth and the sun. So on the night of the 5th, we've got sun here, Earth here, moon here, and with the sunlight shining on the Earth, its shadow covers the moon. Now, there are two parts to a shadow. Your deep shadow, your dark shadow is called the umbra, and your secondary shadow is called the penumbra. And this coming week's lunar eclipse is a penumbral eclipse because the shadow of the Earth is only going to cover the top portion of the moon. It's not going to cover it directly. In a complete direct lunar eclipse, an umbral direct lunar eclipse, the moon actually gets very dark and gets an almost reddish hue. So let's go back to here, and we're going to take a look at what that partial eclipse will look like. So on the night of the 5th, the Earth shadow is only going to cover about this much of the moon. So you're not going to notice much at all. May notice a little bit of darkening up here, but the majority of the moon will not be covered with the shadow of the Earth. Okay? So that's our upcoming eclipse, Sunday the 5th, and that actually is probably, this may be the second lunar eclipse of the year. Okay, moving along. July 20th is the new moon, and let's go back and take a look at that geometry that we looked at just a minute ago. When there's a new moon, the moon would be right here, and so there's no light reflecting on the face of the moon, and so it is dark, it is blacked out. So when you think about that new moon, the geometry would be the moon right here that night. So also on the 20th, we've got the planet Saturn at what we call opposition. And opposition is another one of those geometry issues. And when we talk about opposition, the planet or the object is on the opposite side of the Earth from the sun. So Earth here, sun here, planet Saturn here, very bright. You get all this sunlight that's streaming past the Earth. You're getting a full blare of sun on the planet, and it's up almost all night, so you'll have the opportunity to see Saturn that evening. Small telescope, you'll be able to see the rings. Larger telescope, you may even be able to see the gap in between the rings, what we call the Encke gap. And generally speaking, maybe with a larger telescope, a little bit of color differences. Remember, Saturn is a gas giant, so we've got different compositions and densities of gas, and so a little bit different colors in different areas. July 29th is the date of the Delta Aquarids. It's another one of our summer meteor showers. And so we can bring that up here. And so the meteor showers are named after the point of radiancy in the sky. In other words, where do the meteors seem to be coming from? In this case, they're coming from the area of the Delta star in the constellation Aquarius. And what we've got is an evening of I think we're going to have about a third of the last quarter of the moon. So it's going to be fairly bright, but you should be able to see maybe one meteor, depending on the site that you're looking from and what the sky conditions are like, maybe one every couple of minutes. Because of the way that the Earth's turning into the dust cloud, which was left from a passing comet or some other object, the trail of which is the particles, which are the Delta Aquarids, the motion of them will tend to be kind of slow. You notice as we look at some of these different types of meteor showers that they talk about, whether the particles are bright or fast or slow or whatever. In this case, the Delta Aquarids tend to be the kind of the slow and easy to follow along the sky. Best way to watch a meteor shower is to get out maybe a little bit before midnight or after midnight, and lay down on a blanket and just kind of look straight up. Let your eyes get adjusted to the darkness, and just kind of stare in the direction of Aquarius. And you know, if we've got great sky conditions, you should be treated to a little bit of a show. So that's the night of the 29th of July. All right, heading back to our list. One of the things that I wanted to point out is a program that is great for finding out what's happening in the night sky on a given day. And it's called EarthSky, EarthSky.com. The nice thing about EarthSky.com is that for every night of the year, you get a picture of something that's going to be visible naked eye from your position in the night sky. So for instance, between last night and tonight, the moon's motion is in this direction. It rises later in the evening, and the star Antares is visible. So this little box is always going to show you what's happening in the evening sky. So it's a great kind of go-to app or site to keep on your computer if you want to see what's going to be happening on a given evening. July is a great month for space adventure. We've got 3 launches this month, all heading towards Mars. Because of the geometry with Earth and Mars, launches can only take place about every 22 to 24 months. And so this is the summer where if we're going to send something to Mars, we've got to do it now or wait a couple of years. So the first thing that's going to happen is on the 14th of July, the United Emirates is going to launch their very first satellite, and it's called Hope, and it's headed towards Mars. And let's take a minute to kind of take a look at what's going to be happening with that. This is launching the Arab world into the space race. The satellite's going to do a number of things. It's going to search for connection. We can get it to scroll down here. Search for connection between current Martian weather and the ancient climate in Mars. And a lot of information in Mars' atmosphere will be able to tell us some things about that. It's also going to talk about or help scientists figure out what drove the oxygen and hydrogen that used to be in Mars' atmosphere out. We've been losing Mars' atmosphere for millions of years. At one point, we're pretty sure that Mars was a wet world with an atmosphere similar to ours. Certainly not that way today. And so what scientists are trying to do is to go back and take a look with what we can see today and make suppositions about what might have been happening to cause the changes. The other thing is it's going to study the connection between Mars' lower and upper atmosphere. So basically, this United Emirates satellite is a kind of an atmospheric study vehicle. And here's a picture of it. You've got your solar panels, and it's going to communicate with the planet Earth using this dish. So the next thing that we have going on is really exciting for the United States. We're going to be launching our next rover to Mars. Was known as the Mars 2020 rover for a while, but recently it was named the Perseverance rover by a school student. And so right now we're looking at a launch of July 30th. And this is a picture of one of the previous Mars launches, but this is what we're going to have the opportunity, hopefully, to be able to see on the 30th of July. That date may change. It depends on the weather. We're into all sorts of crazy weather and hurricane season and everything. So, you can check back with this particular page. It's mars.nasa.gov to see if that date changes. And here's a picture of what the new rover is going to look like. It looks an awful lot like the current Curiosity rover. Similar camera and mast system, a similar system for drilling and acquiring things, similar system, but an upgraded system of wheels. One of the things that happened with the Curiosity rover is that the terrain on Mars in some places is very rugged, and the rocks are actually very sharp. And so the Curiosity rover's had some issues with holes actually getting punched into its wheels. And so we've got a new set of wheels here. So the launch is going to be from Cape Canaveral. It will land on Mars on February 18th, 2021, if it launches on the 30th of July. It's going to head towards Jezero crater, which is in the upper half of the planet of Mars. And its mission duration is scheduled to be a year, although one of the great things that we've found with our previous Mars rovers is that they all have outlived their warranty and generally have been operating far past their scheduled use. But it's going to do a couple things. It's going to take a helicopter to Mars, It's going to be a technology demonstration. There's going to be a helicopter that's going to hitch a ride on the back underside of the vehicle, and then when it arrives, it will actually be able to fly ahead and kind of reconnoiter, so that they'll have a kind of an overhead view of where the rover might be able to go. But the other thing that it's going to do is this is a mission which is beginning to be a concept for search for proof of life on Mars, prior life on Mars. So when the rover finds something that might be a sample of some sort of soil or rock or something that may have a sample of possible ancient life on Mars, it's going to pick it up, pop it into a little tube, and leave that tube on the surface. And then that sample tube will be collected by a European rover later on, and then eventually those tubes will be brought back to Earth via kind of a tag system where the European rover launches a module that brings the tubes out into Mars orbit. They're picked up in Mars orbit and brought back to the United States. So it's kind of a long mission if you want to think about the fact that it lands in 2021, but we're not going to be getting those samples back until the late 2020. So as with all space missions, things take a long time. The other mission that we've got is a Chinese mission. This is China's first attempt at a mission to Mars, and it is pretty exciting and a big step. This is rather than playing it safe, China is headed to Mars with its first Martian rover. They've had success with 2 rovers on the moon already. And so this is what the Martian lander will look like. And there's a rover on top that looks similar. I think I've got a picture down here. Here's a rover that looks mighty similar to the rovers that the United States has used on the surface of Mars. So China is really pushing out into space with the successes that they've had on the moon. And this is going to be their first mission to Mars. And again, their Mars mission leaves on July 23rd. So you can see that within the space of a little less than 2 weeks, we've got 3 vehicles heading to the red planet to do research. So every couple of years is always an exciting time for Mars scientists. Kathy, we wanted to spend a minute talking, I think, a little bit about the next observing session, right? Oh, we got it.
Yes,
there
we
you
did.
Sorry, I had to free you up there. Unmute you.
Thank you. But I had a question. So are you saying that we're going to have 2 countries on Mars at the same time?
2 rovers on Mars at the same time. Yep, China and United States.
And that's happened before?
China's never sent anybody, and we're the only country that has had a rover on Mars. So this will be the first time that there are 2 rovers on Mars. And depending on how long these things last, when the European rover gets there in a few years, there's the possibility of having 3 countries with rovers. The European rover got held up because of testing and COVID issues, and so they're going to actually have to wait another 2 years before they can get their launch in. So they won't launch until 2022.
So we purposely wanted to have several on Mars at the same time.
Well, we didn't coordinate with China in any way. It just so happens that this is the year that they had their equipment ready. Our plan has been, we've had the Mars 2020 rover headed in that direction for a number of years. And just in the last couple of years, China revealed that they were also working to get a rover there during this launch period.
Okay, that's going to be interesting.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I had to ask. Wow, Mars is getting busy.
Yeah.
So we are going to have a stargazing event August 21st, 9 o'clock. And we're going to have people use an app, which I will have available for people when they sign up for it. So they can look at the night sky as we stay safely distant. And Steve, you'll have your telescope and your phone to guide everybody to the celestial bodies with that app, right?
Yeah, and the other thing that we're still working on, this is such a new area for amateur astronomers and astronomers doing outreach. If we have the ability to get a projector up there with some electricity, I'm not sure where the closest electrical post is, but if we could get some electricity up there, we may be able to actually project onto a screen, which would give us a lot better image than what we might get with that phone app. But one way or another, by hook or by crook, we are going to try and do some group stargazing that evening.
Yep, and the next thing is making sure the weather cooperates as well. So
right, yeah.
So I guess I'll just say that we're gonna have another star date in the beginning of August, so we can update everybody if anything changes about our stargazing, and then of course you'll let us know what's happening in August as well.
Right, yeah. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be testing a couple of these systems just to find out what's going to work the best.
Well, thanks again, Steve. You are just a world of knowledge. That was a lot of great information that you gave everybody.
Well, thanks a lot. I just kind of pull it together. The cool thing is just to know that even in these times of COVID and pandemic, there's still a lot of great science going on.
And I think that people are going to enjoy what they see too. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.